So we're comparing variation between groups and variation within groups. And if there's no systematic group difference effect between the groups, there should only be natural variation, right? The same variation that's happening within the groups here. And if we compare natural variation with natural variation and this group difference effect is 0, then we should have an F value that's somewhere close to 1. But as you know by now, statistics accommodates randomness, and thus a question is not really is it exactly 1, but how far away is it from 1. So here is where we introduce the F distribution. The F distribution is similar as something like the T distribution or Z distribution, but this time it's a ratio. And because ratios cannot go negative, right, all we do is we go to 0 and we have only positive numbers, right? And now what we also have, we don't have just 1 degree of freedom, we have 2 degrees of freedom. So we have 1 degree of freedom that tells us about the number of groups that were involved, and the second degree of freedom tells us about how many people or how many units were in each group. So you get a curve like this for each combination of degrees of freedom, right? Here we have a combination of 4 and 12, and we could see now that the probability of having a 1 with this constellation of groups and amount of people in each group, we have a very high probability, right? 0.7 probability to be around 1. It's very likely that you're around 1. Right? This is assuming that there's no difference. Now, if we go, for example, now to 3.26, if we get that F value, we slide all the way out here on the distribution. And the F distribution, this F value of 3.26, if we look at the probability, right, imagine here imaginary line going back, that will be a 5% of the distribution would be here or higher, right? So here again, the same concept that we had with the t-test, that means that the critical F value is 3.26, and as soon as we have F values that are higher than 3.26, we would reject the null hypothesis, and the null hypothesis would be that there is no difference between groups. If we find a value that's higher than 3.26, we would reject the null and say there is a difference. Again, that's under these conditions with these degrees of freedoms of degrees of freedom 1 is 4, degrees of freedom of 2 is 12. So you can see here some other examples, right, where each of the combinations has a different F curve, different F distribution.